So today we're going to be learning how to use the pen tool so you can change the colour of the backgrounds of your images that we took a few weeks ago. This is really good if you want to make an image look more commercial or we didn't have that colour backdrop that you needed before. So starting with our original image, we're going to duplicate that first of all. You're then going to click on the pen tool or press P, and you're going to click on two different points. The pen tool is used for selecting certain areas of an image. So I make my first click and my second click, and then these handlebars appear which I can use to steer the curve between those 2 points. If I press Alt and click on that square in the middle, it means I can move on to a third point where more handlebars appear, and again I can use that to steer that curve. Now I realised here that I went around the top of the cup rather than the outside. Silly mistake, but you can just press Ctrl and Z or backspace and go back to where you were before. So once more, press Alt and click that little square. Move on to your next point and click, and then use the handlebars to steer that curve. Now if we just zoom in, you'll see that a circle's appeared next to my pen. That is because I have got back to the beginning of where I started selecting from. If I click there, it means that a line will form around the object, and that's called a path. So I've cut out my first cup using the pen tool, now to do the second one, and then we're going to turn those paths into a selection like you've seen lots of times before. We're going to do that by going to the Paths panel and pressing Ctrl and clicking on the path that you've just created. You'll see the marching ants appear around the outside of the object. You'll then need to press Ctrl and J to duplicate those cups onto a new layer so we've got them by themselves. We're then going to make a new layer and fill that layer with a colour of your choice. I'm going to go for a brown because it matches the colour of the wood on the cups. Then I'm going to use the paint bucket tool and fill in that background colour. At the minute this is looking quite unrealistic, so we need to take the shadow from the original image and put it onto this brown background. Again, we're going to duplicate our original image, and then we're going to use the eyedropper tool to select the colour of that original background and effectively delete the object, so we've just got the shadow left behind. Make sure the hardness of your brush is set to 0, and don't worry about leaving the bottom of the object in there because it's going to be covered by the one that you've cut out before. Your next job is to drag the layer with the shadow on above the layer with that colour on, and then we're going to use the blending modes and the levels tool to get it on there as realistically as possible. So right now I'm making my image lighter apart from the shadows. I'm then going to merge the levels layer and the shadow layer together so I can control them easier, and then I'm going to switch my colour layer back on and use blending tools or blending modes to get the shadow onto that brown background we've made. And there we go, that's looking more realistic already. I want to add a big highlight behind my cups so that the white halo that's around them currently looks more realistic. Make sure you've got a really big brush with the hardness set to 0, and I clicked a couple of times so the lighting looked more realistic, and then I adjusted my opacity so that it blended and faded a little bit better.